Hey everybody, Mr. Marie here, working on it Wednesday. Today is March 3rd, 2021, and as you can see, we've started the mini bike project. As I probably told you folks in class, if you've seen it sitting here, this was actually out of the trash. It was laying behind a shed at a house my uncle and I were working at. So here's the main part of the frame for the mini bike, and we've basically pulled the wheels and tires off of it. I took the tire off of this rim, the rear tire. As you can see, that's severely rusted. It's pretty nasty looking. And as we put this thing back together, we're gonna have a nice coat of paint on everything. Obviously stop that stuff from rusting, and obviously have it look nice in regards to an appearance. So the frame, as you can see here, it was kind of dirty, but it wasn't really super rusty. There was some light rust on the frame that we do have to address and clean up a little bit. Some of the other areas, though, did have quite a bit of rust on them, so we need to remove that before we can apply any kind of a paint or finish. So there's two different ways to remove the rust. The first way, we can take sandpaper and try and sand or abrade the metal down. The second way we can attempt to do it here is by wire wheeling. So this is a wire wheel that goes on the end of an electric drill. Okay, that can be used to remove some. The speed is not very high. There's also a wire wheel that goes on an angle grinder. And this here really works well. It is kind of dangerous though, as that wire wheel spins at a high rate of speed. It makes contact with that metal and removes all the garbage. The last method is sandblasting. With the sandblasting cabinet in the back of the room, we can put the objects inside the sandblaster, sandblast it, and it was to remove all the junk out of there. So what we'll probably do on the frame section, we will wire wheel this because it's not that bad. The wheel though is pretty rough, so we're gonna have to spend some time with this thing to get it cleaned up and get it down to where it's supposed to be. Now, just to give you an idea what it looks like, or what it will look like, obviously you can see what that wheel looks like. It's pretty foul. There's a lot of crusty rust on there, a lot of garbage. After the sandblaster, it'll look something like this. Okay, we're gonna put the work in there. There's a nozzle, we'll show you what that looks like, but it'll have the appearance like this. It'll be kind of dull looking. All the rust is removed though. What's remaining, what's left over, is actually where the rust was penetrating into the metal. So we'll take and we'll get this primed, we'll put some paint on there, clean it up and have it looking good. So we do have another student working on this project with me. So he got the fenders sandblasted. We have one of the rear hubs sandblasted, and that's ready for paint. The handlebar section is also cleaned up. This is ready for paint. Almost. There's a couple spots that we need to touch up yet. And the rear sprocket. Okay, this stuff is all just as crusty as that wheel is. So that's obviously what we need to address. And once it's at this state, we can basically wipe it down with a thinner, like a lacquer thinner product, wax and grease remover, something like that. Once it flashes off, it's ready for paint. So those items are ready. The wheel is, just to show you what this looks like with the wire wheels, so you folks can kind of get a grasp of what all this does here and how this works. We'll pick a section of this frame. And here's an under section of the frame. We'll take a wire wheel apart of this so you can see what this looks like. Now this does have all the bolts in it from the previous owner. We have to get those off of there. I'll probably I might just grab a cutoff wheel real fast. We'll cut these and then I'll wire wheel this bottom and we'll show you what that looks like. So let me grab a grinder here. We'll cut this off for you. Very important during this process to obviously wear safety glasses or a face shield. I have a full face shield you can put over top of your head, and that works out well. So we'll probably have to dive into that here later. Safety glasses on, let's get these bolts cut off, and we'll wire wheel the bottom of this and show you what that looks like. We'll also put the wire wheel in the electric drill so you can see what that process looks like too. So let's start by getting these bolts cut. kickstand was left on there. Let's see if we can remove the kickstand here. That's pretty rusted. I don't think it's going to come off. Might have to work around it to officially get it off nice. Or let's try and get a socket. Maybe we'll 9/16 or half an inch. We'll try and pull that quick. And for the ease of this, we'll use the impact gun. See it around here. Grab a battery. See if this will come off nice. Okay, and it's in our hand. All the hardware on here, as you can see, the threads are pretty gooned up on this, and it's rusted up, so we'll take and throw the hardware out. We'll just grab new bolts for everything. We got to put it together. So here's our thing. We're going to take a wire wheel this. So we'll plug our grinder in first. You can see what this looks like. And this is going to throw quite a bit of dust and dirt and grime and junk like that. So as you can see, that's an efficient way to clean this off. You can see it's removed a lot of the rust and the dirt and the other junk that's on there. So that's, like I said, one tool we can use. Now, in some of the hard to reach areas where we can't get the drill, we can take and put a wire wheel on our electric drill. So we just grabbed a 3/8 drill out of the cover. And, whoop, just dropped it. Here's our small wire wheel. We'll put this inside of our drill. Tighten our chuck up here. And once we have the end of it tight, we'll take this here, full throttle, and we'll wire wheel this thing. The biggest thing is pay attention to the rotation of the wheel. Make sure your people aren't behind you. If the wires start to come out of these, which they commonly do, that's going to strike the person behind you. So think about safety as you're starting this process too. So inside those grooves, that's what we're looking to clean. So you can see the efficiency of these. It does work well. It does take some time though. It's not an instant process. We do have to put some time and effort into making that happen. Okay? Now, this wheel we said obviously is pretty rough. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to the sandblaster. We're going to set this up in a sandblaster, show you how the sandblaster works, and we're going to sandblast this and then clean it up, and hopefully we'll shoot some paint here today. So we're back here at the sandblaster. The first thing we want to do is open the unit itself, and we're going to set our work inside of here. Second thing we're going to do is turn the air on. There's a blue valve on the left-hand side of the unit. Turn that to the left, you're going to hear a hissing sound. And the next thing we're going to do is turn the on switch, which it's on top of the lid here on the right side. There's also a vacuum plugged into this. So I'm going to turn the vacuum off temporarily until I explain this, and then we'll turn it back on. That draws all the dust out of the unit as we're sandblasting. So if I just flip this on, the light turns on inside of here, and we'll get you a little closer. So inside the unit, we obviously put our hands through the gloves, and this is the head of the sandblaster. So the way this thing operates, we hold with the glove inside of here, we step down on the pedal, and when the pedal actuates, air comes through the line, through here, and it picks up our sand or our media through the bottom of here. We use a product called Black Beauty. Looks like coffee grounds. Try and get some for you there. Move it on this piece of sheet metal. That's our stuff there. It's called Black Beauty. And so we'll take, once that's done, and we'll start to sandblast with that material. Okay, step down on the pedal, comes through, and it'll blast. Probably not going to be able to show what it looks like from an operating view. I don't know if you'll be able to see through here and have me do this at the same time. We'll try though. We'll put our hands through the gloves. And let's see here. If I prop this up, you can sort of see our wheel in there. And if I step down on the pedal, hold the nozzle. It's going to take and remove all that paint. So what I'll do is I'll pop this out here so you can see it. Which is right here. So right there you can see the part that we just blasted. Clean as a whistle, no paint on it. I'm going to fire this thing back up, put the vacuum on, finish sandblasting this all the way, and then we will get ready to do a little bit of paint here. So we plug the vacuum in so you can hear this. It does get kind of loud back here if you want to put a pair of plugs in, so you don't have to listen to all the nonsense. Welcome to do that. Oh, here's our plug. That's what it sounds like, it's just a little bit louder. So I'm going to sandblast this, you don't have to listen to all the racket. Once I'm done, we'll meet you back here and we'll show you how to do some paint. Okay, so you can clearly see that we went back to the sandblaster. We took and removed all that nasty looking paint. We're down to a relatively clean surface. A couple things we need to do to prep before we can paint. First thing we're going to do is take some compressed air, and the sandblaster leaves a little bit of dust on everything. So we want to take and get that dust off of our items we're going to paint. So we're just going to simply take an air nozzle. Okay, nothing too scientific there. The next thing we want to do is take a product like lacquer thinner. And what this lacquer thinner is going to do is remove any type of grease or oil that is left on the item that we're going to paint. If there's any kind of grease or oil on the project or the item we're going to paint, the paint's not going to stick. So that's kind of a waste of time if we don't prepare it correctly. So we're just going to take some lacquer thinner. You can also use this stuff called grease and wax remover. It's another good item. We're just going to get some on a paper towel here. Normally I would do this in a spray booth, but there's a bunch of stuff in the wood shop, and I didn't want to disrupt Mr. Wells over there. So take our lacquer thinner on a paper towel or a clean rag, and we're going to wipe this down. You can see some of the dirt starting to come off in there. Bring my hands up a little bit too. So because this thing was so bad, it's we'll probably do a couple coats of paint on it, a couple coats of primer first before we start our paint. That's going to help that paint adhere and stick very well. So let's get a little more thinner on there. thinner is going to flash off as you're using it, or it's going to start to dry up. So if you have to reapply it, that's fine. If you need more paper towels, obviously you can grab those. Note, this stuff is very flammable, so when you're done with your paper towels, there are red garbage cans underneath the lathes. Those are fire cans. They're basically airtight. Nothing can combust inside of those. Okay, the nice purple lacquer thinner dries extremely quickly. So this is actually almost dry already. I'm going to get our thinner out of the way here. And if we have a bunch of painting to do, I actually have a gallon of the Rust-Oleum Rust Primer. And we could mix it up and spray it in a spray gun. That might be for another day. For today, we're going to use this product here, the Rusty Metal Primer. And that's going to stop this thing from rusting. Just one more quick spray of the air hose. Make sure there's no remnants of paper towels or anything like that on it. And as the can always says, shake for 5 minutes. Normally your spray paint sits like this, straight up and down, and all the solids settle to the bottom. So we're going to have a good shake on there before we start to spray. Now, as we spray with spray paint, we're going to do multiple light coats. We don't want to dump a bunch of paint on here. It'll take forever to dry, so we're going to go nice light coats. We'll start with the inside of this first. And if we have to put more than one coat on, that's fine. You know, it's not a problem. So that'll be our first light coat on the inside of our wheel. And we're now going to work on getting the rest of this covered. And because this is so pitted, we might even sand in between our coats of primer. It's going to help our finished coat smooth out a little bit. We're going to use the Rusty Metal Primer for everything on this project because of the large amount of rust that's on this thing. Okay, nice light coat of paint. As I said, once this dries, we will apply a second coat. So we're pretty much going to leave this where it's sitting. I'm actually going to grab from the inside. Move this over just a little bit. And we'll spray paint a fender too while we're here. So here's one of our front fenders. Came out very nice, sandblasted. We do need to prepare it though. We do need to wipe it down with some thinner. I put that back a little too early here. Oh yeah. So if we're going to spend this kind of time on something, just spend extra time, prepare it correctly, and that way when we go to apply paint, you know, it's going to hold the paint well, it's going to look nice. Okay, let that flash off for a second while we're waiting for it to dry. Hit it with a little bit of air, make sure we're on an item like this, we can paint the inside of it, set it down like this, and then paint the outside of it. So we can do 2 birds with one stone. As we previously said, nice light coats on everything. We don't want to dump that paint on and have to sand out runs and stuff later. So just a nice light coat of paint there. Give her a flip. Now there's a couple areas that are obviously going to touch when we put this down. So we might have a couple marks to address later, but for the most part, you know, the heavy part of the painting will be complete. and we'll do a little touch up when it's all said and done. We got to do our final coat of our color. We'll take and do one side at a time, let it completely dry. There we go. So just to recap our steps on preparation and painting. Step one, we need to remove any kind of loose rust. So loose rust, tight rust, scaly rust, removed with either a wire wheel, sandpaper, sandblaster. Once that's totally done, we need to take the air nozzle, blow any dust off of it. After that, we need to take and wipe it with a solvent, whether it be lacquer thinner, acetone, something like that. Remove any grease, oil, any other things like that. Once that's done, we want to apply our primer, nice light coats. We don't want to pile the paint on. Once our primer dries, this stuff here is recoat in a couple hours. We'll put a second coat of primer on, see where it's at. Once the primer is dry, I like to let my primer sit for a couple days, at least this stuff here, like the Rust-Oleum primers. Once that's done, we can apply a paint finish. We'll probably put 2 to 3 coats of paint on so we have that thickness of paint and so the material holds up a little bit better. This thing's probably going to be going off-road, on-road, etc. So it's going to probably be getting hit with some dirt and things like that. So that's preparation for painting metal objects.